Ladies and gentlemen, what are they investigating Trump for? Like, what did he do? What crime did he commit? We still don't know. And this CNN article doesn't tell you. So Trump's tax returns are related records turned over to Manhattan District Attorney. Yeah, for what purpose? The IRS already had his tax returns. The government had his tax returns this entire time. You think that the IRS would allow him to have, to fund romantic relationships with Vladimir Putin and every other example of compromise and just allow it to take place? Like, if there was, he was audited. So it's not, the Democrats are not accountants. The Democratic Party is not full of these accountants that used to work for the IRS that can look at, that are qualified. See, the media and Democrats, oftentimes what they do is that, well, experts agree with us. Experts, they're not experts in tax returns or accounting. So what are they going to do? Find people who could possibly scrutinize based on the allegations of Michael Cohen, who, by the way, were ignored before the first impeachment. Usually you have a predicate crime. You have something you're investigating. Somebody breaks the law, and it's a specific legal statute, and they break the law. They don't just read Clinton Cash like Peter Schweitzer wrote a great book, Clinton Cash. Why doesn't the Southern District read that and then just investigate on all the, obvious pay-to-play schemes where money flowed into the foundation, beneficial treatment took place for the people who, so they didn't put money into Bill's pocket. Oh my goodness, a little bit to the left. They didn't put money, they didn't shove dollar bills into Bill's pocket or Madam Secretary's moo-moo. They didn't give them money directly. Obviously, you had people who gave millions upon millions, hundreds of millions in total, to the foundation, and then miraculously, whether it was UBS or Boeing or countries that were looking for arms shipments or Uranium One with President Obama not vetoing the sale, you have beneficial treatment taking place to the people who gave money. It's not tinfoil hat. That's why they gave the money, for access. Anyway, you don't see investigators in New York reading Clinton Cash and saying, okay, these allegations are in this book, it's a great book, by the way, but it's full of allegations. They don't investigate the allegations. They say, well, this is just the opinion and the viewpoint of one person who doesn't like the Clintons, and that's it. But with Trump, it's a dossier purchased by Madam Secretary, no problem. If any allegation at all, even from somebody who had a failed taxi empire or whatever, like his taxi medallions were eventually worth like a bag of Cheetos. And so Uber and Lyft, and, just he had a whole bunch of money in taxis in New York. It didn't work out, Michael Cohen, and he engaged eventually in bank fraud. But the bank had evidence of that. And so he committed an actual crime. What did Trump do? Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. We're on our way back to 200,000 subscribers. And then I'm going to read you after, and you can go to hagoodman.com and read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist. You can see my debates. Donald Trump falls 35 spots on the Forbes 400. This is October 4, 2016. You want to know how long he's been on the Forbes wealthiest list? Since 1982. Okay, 1982, the inaugural issue. He's been in the spotlight since the early 80s, since 1982. Okay, for almost 40 years. The man has been in the spotlight, both in terms of his financial dealings and who he is, for 40 years. Trump and his father Fred appeared on the inaugural issue of the list in 1982 with a shared fortune valued at more than $200 million. An avalanche of debt stemming from bad business deals knocked the Donald out of the ranks in 1990. But 6 years later, riding robust real estate markets, Trump returned to the list with a fortune of $450 million. Okay, that was 2016. Now you have Trump's tax returns and related records turned over to the Manhattan District Attorney. Tax records that former President Donald Trump tried to keep secret for years are now in the hands of the New York District Attorney. Okay, here's a little news flash. When Biden or Clinton give their tax returns, they're not, okay, you better believe that Caligula, his son, and those emails aren't reflected within the numbers. And also, there's zero emphasis on trying to investigate any Democrat. So you can pretty much get away, like Eric Swalwell had a romantic relationship, allegedly, with a foreign intelligence operative. You could pretty much get away. No one's talking about that. The only reason they're investigating New York's governor, Cuomo, is because his decision-making was so horrendous. It led to so many lives being lost that even Democrats had like enough. Like it took that kind of catastrophe for Democrats to investigate. But they've been blaming Trump for everything under the sun when they're the ones who have been guilty of things that they leveled against Trump. They're the ones who enriched themselves from politics, not Trump. Trump's been, like I said, on the Forbes wealthiest list for decades. He didn't need politics to enrich himself. Biden and Clinton and others do. That's why when President Biden came into the vice presidency, he had like $300,000, $30,000, all these different estimates. One estimate said that he owed money because of debt. And then 8 years later, he suddenly and miraculously got, $10 to $12 million from what? How did this man get 10 to 12? Then you have the biggest scandal and story and controversy of the last couple of decades with his son and a laptop and emails showing, incriminating statements like, thanks for helping us meet your father, when Biden said he never met anyone. He was vice president at the time. We couldn't even talk about that because they said, well, it was hacked. It wasn't that the emails were never hacked. Then Twitter suspended the New York Post account. So Democrats and media have learned, if you don't like a story, make sure that it's deemed, hacked by Russia or whatever excuse. The duplicity and hypocrisy is there because Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Liz Cheney, all of these people that actually Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger voted alongside President Trump. If there's 538 has a vote tracker, they voted alongside President Trump 90+% of the time. Okay? 90% of the time. And the only thing they don't like about Trump are his tweets or his personality, which, okay, you know what? He fell into a trap when it came to Twitter. So, a lot of the tweets he shouldn't have written. There was no point. It didn't even no good. It gave Democrats this sustenance, it gave them a reason for being. Now they don't care about the issues that they thought they pretended to care about. So we can go in through the list of issues, but of course that's you can't really talk about that. The cages, everything like that, that's happening right now, but it's happening with a smiling face, Biden. But here, the millions of pages of documents sources say contain Trump's tax returns spanning from January 2011 to August 2019, as well as financial statements, engagement agreements, documents relating to the preparation and review of tax returns, and work papers and communication related to the tax returns. Though the documents handed off from Mr. Trump's longtime accounting firm Mazars won't be released to the public because they're subject to a grand jury secret. Grand jury. They get a grand jury like that. If it's Peter Strzok, oh, forget about it. You have agents that literally texted, "We will stop Trump." The whole system was geared towards preventing Trump, and the thing is, President Trump kept on pushing the envelope, and it just got them even. I mean, they would have gone after him anyway, but it didn't do him any good, especially with what took place in January. So, the delivery caps off an extraordinary 17-month quest by the former president and his lawyers to block investigators from obtaining the records. They have a grand jury. For what? What did this man do? Michael Cohen testified that he manipulated his wealth to get loans. Deutsche Bank gave him $2 billion in loans. You think that Deutsche Bank was just naive and they didn't make money or interest, a great deal of money from those loans? I mean, like, what is it that what is it that they're accusing? Like, what are they actually accusing Trump of doing? This is what none of these articles say what he actually, the crime he committed. They're searching, just like, okay, with Russia, they call him a despot. I don't know how many despots are framed by their own intelligence agencies. So, he didn't work with Russia. That was absurd. The whole thing was a tinfoil hat fantasy from the beginning. But they investigated allegations. Usually you investigate an actual crime. So he didn't commit a crime, but they investigated the possibility that he might have. Same here. They're investigating the possibility he might have done something. We don't know. He could have. There's got to be something that he's done. He might have. They don't do that with Biden and Clinton. Could you imagine? Like, if Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr. or Kushner left a laptop full of incriminating emails, that would have already been in the Southern District hands. That would have already been in the FBI's possession. I think it is now, but they would have done something about it. With Trump, it's like they get an accusation or allegation or innuendo or some possibility he committed something somewhere, and they said, let's investigate because he might have. He's capable of anything. That's the way they think of President Trump. He's capable of anything. And with Biden, it's like these are the people who actually enriched themselves. New York District Attorney Cy Vance is investigating whether Trump and the Trump Organization engaged in tax fraud. But the IRS would have notified. I mean, the Southern District is in the IRS. Insurance fraud, then the insurance companies would have notified the authorities. And other schemes to defraud, including potentially providing false information to financial institutions or banks about the value of certain buildings and assets. What? You don't think people who own buildings think that the buildings are higher valued than the bank that's trying to say, hey, you know what? That's not enough collateral. You got to give us more cash, or you got to give us, we're going to, hike up the interest rates, increase the interest rate for the loan because you know what? I mean, that's not enough. It's not worth enough. I mean, obviously there are negotiations. What did this man? So this is the crime of the century. Cy Vance is investigating whether Trump and the Trump Organization engaged in tax fraud, which the IRS would have told them about, insurance fraud, which the insurance companies would have found out, and other schemes to defraud, just a whole bunch of other things, including potentially false information to Deutsche Bank. He worked primarily with Deutsche Bank. So you mean Deutsche Bank didn't know? One of the largest financial institutions on the planet didn't know that Trump, they were deceived? They know more about real estate, and Trump and Deutsche Bank know more about New York real estate than anyone working at the Southern District. These are government employees. They're attorneys. And they're primarily liberal Democrats. Liberal Democrats being they are extensions of the Democratic Party. That's why they investigated Clinton for one day only, one day, Sunday, just one day, or 1 month, or whatever. It was Preet Bharara that investigated, I think, the Clinton Foundation for a month, less than that, a couple weeks. They found nothing. Even though you have emails, the campaign emails show Bill Clinton Inc., 500 conflicts of interest. It's actually there. Their own writing does them in, and nobody looks. Trump doesn't have emails floating around, but he had to have done something, With the records now in hand, Vance and his fellow prosecutors will be able to get deeper into investigative theories. Pursue interviews with key investigative theories. What? And determine whether they believe any state laws have been violated. So this is going to be below, and this is probably determine whether they believe state laws have been... I should have harped on this for the past 10 minutes. Determine whether they believe any state laws have been violated. You mean there's an admission in this article that no state laws have yet been violated according to the Southern District? How does that work? Even if you don't like Trump, even if you can't stand him, you're next. If you think that they're going to just end it with Trump, the left, like every tactic they use against Trump, we've seen. Left-leaning pundits, left-leaning journalists have experienced the same things. Democrats look at the left and they look at conservatives and they say, okay, we don't like either. Especially the ideology to the left of the Democratic Party is their biggest obstacle. It's not President Trump. This is like a public relations stunt. At the end of the day, they're not going to find anything, just like they didn't find anything with 2 impeachments. Like, it was a tragedy what took place in January. It was also a tragedies that took place 5-6 months prior with clashes and how many lives, 19 lives lost according to Wikipedia. $1 to $2 billion in property damage according to Wikipedia. But that's not associated with the left or left-leaning protesters. And you can't say, well, it was for a good cause. There's no cause on the planet that's worth any life, or the lives of 19 people, or arson, or buildings being torched. It's what CNN worked overtime to be like, oh, well, you know what? It was peaceful, fiery but peaceful. They had a building in flames behind the journalist. That's how just fanatical they were in trying to foment a narrative. But everybody knew. That's why people vote for President Trump. One of the reasons, in addition, for me, it's foreign policy and other reasons. But people vote for President Trump because they know there's such an overt narrative that doesn't correlate to reality. People lived in cities throughout the country with curfews at night. Why? Because the wonderful, peaceful protests weren't that peaceful. And so you have this complete double standard, but it's because of the Mitt Romneys and Ben Sasses and Liz Cheney and all these people. You have the double standard that exists because you don't have Republicans saying, "Hey, there's a double standard." You don't have Republicans saying, "Wait, this is not right." So, you don't have Republicans saying, wait, this is not right, there's a double standard, we're going to push back against this censorship or the suppression of thought, or wait a second, the New York Post is if Mitt Romney and Ben Sass actually read the New York Post articles to their constituents, could you imagine the difference? Like, if Mitt Romney and Ben Sass and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and all these never-Trumpers, if they actually didn't defend Trump, but defended people who voted for President Trump, 74 million people, Democrats wouldn't get away with everything. They need every conceivable possible advantage, and they still have the smallest majority in, one of the smallest majorities in history in Congress. That's with every conceivable possible advantage. So, they won the game by, 1 or 2 points, the football game, and they had every advantage possible. So imagine if it's a level playing field. Imagine if you had Republicans actually saying, hey, wait a second, you can't investigate just because you think laws have been broken. They are getting his financial records because they think he did something wrong, not because he did something wrong, and determine whether they believe any state laws have been violated. Wait a second. With the records now in advance, and his fellow prosecutors will be able to get deeper into investigative theories, pursue interviews and key witnesses. They're going to do all of this just to determine whether they think state laws have been violated? They don't know yet? You mean they don't know? Is this okay? Is this the way life, is this the way the law and life and society is conducted in this country? Even if you don't like Trump, is this if an allegation or innuendo or hearsay or gossip is leveled against you, do you just want, is that okay? Would you allow, even if you were if you couldn't stand Trump, and they don't even have, and determine whether they believe any state laws have been violated. They do not have any evidence at the moment, nor do they have any legal statute that's been broken by President Trump. This is a fact, and it's right here to determine whether they believe any state laws have been violated. They don't know if any state laws have been violated. And it's pretty unbelievable. And then you look if there are certain people, unfortunately, a great many people, if they found out you vote for President Trump, they look at you like you're this monster. And it's like, they don't realize that the despots are on their side. The tyrants, the people who, what they did to President Trump, when it was the investigation with Russia, and now this, 2 impeachments, and 2 acquittals, but he was acquitted because they don't have evidence of their claims. Those acquittals were, greater losses for them than any political victory they achieved from trying to impeach Trump. They created this world where they're morally superior, but they're morally inferior in so many ways. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. I'll be back numerous times today. Be here for the live stream at about 7, 8 p.m. tonight. Thanks.